I've been putting in a fair chunk of hours into Starfield of late, and I'm embarrassed to admit there have been a lot of simple methods, controls, and even glaringly obvious bits of information that have either not been presented to me or perhaps I skipped through in my eagerness to do the pew pew in space. I have wasted literal hours doing things the wrong way, the hard way, and sometimes not at all. And while I have no doubt there are still many things I'm doing wrong, there are a few things that I've finally gotten a handle on that have made my experience in the Starfield that much more enjoyable. And so, being the kind sort that I am, I figured I'd share a handful of them with you today. Before I do, I just want to give a huge thank you to Bethesda ANZ for gifting me a premium edition of Starfield to live out my Spaceman Fantasies, and also to thank all of you for watching my content. If you do enjoy this video today and perhaps even learn something new to aid you in your journey amongst the stars, hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. Alright, let's dive in. While this bit of info doesn't have a mechanical advantage in Starfield, it just wouldn't be my kind of RPG if you couldn't have control over your character's appearance. And I'll have to admit, it took me far too many hours of running around settlements in full gear dressed like a loon before I realized I could change my appearance when out of combat. In your inventory, in the helmet options, you can select to remove in atmosphere by pressing the T key. And also, if you want to take advantage of the many attire options available in the game, in the armor selection you can choose to hide armor in settlements in the same fashion. While this is a nifty little aesthetic change for those that prefer to play in third person, activating your boost pack will make it visible. So if you want a little more immersion, maybe keep those feet on the ground. Starfield has a fair whack of companions that you can bring along with you, and sometimes you'll want them to be equipped with some better gear than the default Constellation suit they come with. Talk to your companion and select Let's Trade Gear and give them the weapons and armor that you'd like them to use. Go back into their inventory with the Q key and press the B key while hovered over the item you'd like them to equip. This one took me a while to realize because when I hovered over the gear it showed my character in the gear and not the companion, but rest assured they'll equip it. This also applies to their settlement attire, so if you're getting tired of Sarah's red leather jacket, you can swap her out into something a little less conspicuous. Sadly, Vasco just doesn't fit into human pants, so he'll never really get to take part in the fashion of the time. Sorry, buddy. Some of the best perks and build skills in Starfield are locked behind skill points, and so leveling is going to be a huge focus for you most of your time in the game. And while the storyline and numerous side quests will provide you with a hefty amount of XP, a little bit more is always better. And so when I discovered this handy little feature, it became second nature. Sleeping in a bed, whether it be at the lodge, a habitat, or more conveniently one in your ship, will provide you with the well-rested XP buff. This extra 10% for half an hour might not seem like much at first, but it really stacks up as you smash through quests and kill a whole bunch of dudes. So be sure to get your beauty sleep often. Should you have managed to win the affections of one of your companions, having them as your active follower while you sleep bumps this bonus up to 15%. Sadly, I'm still working with the standard 10%, as Vasco said he doesn't want to ruin our friendship. There's a whole lot that you can craft and upgrade in Starfield, from sandwiches to fully automatic receivers for your weapons, and that's not even mentioning the outpost construction. As you travel about the verse, you'll collect many materials used in these ventures, and the last thing you want is to be weighed down by them. Store your resources in your ship so long as it has enough cargo space, and you'll always have them nearby for when you want to research or craft something at a crafting station. Within the cockpit of your ship, you'll see a panel like this that allows you to directly access to the cargo hold, and from your inventory you can store all resources so long as you have the space. When the ship runs out of space, you can also start storing these items in larger cargo containers set up at your outposts, but sometimes having the essentials on hand saves you having to make a grab jump back. I'm ashamed to admit this one, but when I first started crafting food items, I couldn't for the life of me find bread. I spent hours searching through abandoned outposts and spacer-infested derelicts to finally discover that bread in Starfield isn't just called bread. In fact, there are several types of bread from rye to white, and the majority of key food items are all available to purchase at, you guessed it, a store. CJ's in New Atlantis has many of the basic ingredients you'll need for early research recipes and the crafting themselves, and believe me when I say when utilized properly with the right skills, food can be just as effective, if not better, than your conventional medical supplies. So don't bumble around in the dark for hours like I did, head on down to CJ's for some tasty Red Harvest wheat. Starfield has some pretty densely packed urban areas, and sadly the area map isn't quite as nice to use as some previous Bethesda titles, so sometimes it's easy to get lost in the larger settlements when you've got to get somewhere for a mission. Luckily, by activating your scanner mode with the F key, you'll activate this breadcrumb trail to assist you in making your way to your destination. This also works out in the barren moonscapes of the many planetoids you'll traverse, but honestly, it's really most useful in urban and industrial areas with multiple levels, but it gets a little bit better. Using the scanner also highlights lootable containers and items, so if you want to make sure you haven't missed a downed foe or even a sneakily hidden container, be sure to utilize the scanner. There's quite a bit to research and craft in Starfield, and keeping track of it all can be a bit much, especially with everything else that's going on. Luckily though, you can track the materials you need by pressing the R key when looking at a particular research or crafting recipe, and anytime you come across that resource in your adventures or even when perusing through a vendor's wares, you'll see the tracked icon next to it so that you'll be reminded that at some point, whether hours or days ago, you needed it, and to head back over to the appropriate station to research or craft. Sometimes while researching, you'll have something called overflow. When submitting a required number of a particular resource to the project, if you have more than the required amount, there's a chance extra of that resource will be converted to other resources in the same recipe that are needed, in an overflow fashion. Oxygen levels play a huge part in Starfield as you run and jump all about the verse, and you'll often find that when you've exerted yourself just a little bit too much, that CO2 bar will start taking over. But not to worry. While it's true continuing to sprint while your CO2 bar, the red bar filling your oxygen meter, is full can cause damage, it's not an instant death sentence. You can easily counteract the damage you take with the use of a medpack, as the rate at which it heals you is faster than the rate at which you sustain damage. You will, however, need to continue the application of those medpacks if you continue to run with a full CO2 meter. This is especially useful for those times you're overburdened with loot and need to run back to your ship. When you're customizing the ship of your dreams, you might have noticed that sometimes the components you remove from the ship wouldn't snap to another connection point while you hovered over it. Embarrassingly, it took a friend telling me that you can use the R and F keys to change the vertical layer that the component is on in order to move it. So when you grab the component, pressing the F key will lower it to a layer below, and pressing the R key will raise it to a level above. I hope this prevents you from enduring hours of frustration like I did. This one I discovered while I was making this video, and I'm actually a little bit annoyed that it took me so long, as I've been flying from system to system trying to upgrade my ship. So here you go. In the Outpost Builder, constructing yourself the landing pad with Ship Builder allows you to access the vast majority of purchasable ship parts, as well as ships that you would normally need to visit a few different locations for. There are a few that are exclusively at these key shipyards, but the bulk of them can be purchased essentially at home. And there you have it. Just some tips that you might already know, but if you didn't, you hopefully won't spend quite so long doing things the hard way like I did. If you enjoyed this video or I've saved you some time, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Stay safe in the Starfield, and I'll catch you all next time.